My mom turned my birthday into my sister's because she's sensitive and needs more attention. I packed my bag, slept on benches, and built a life. Now they regret it. Hey, Reddit, I never thought my life would turn into one long chain of prove them wrong moments. But that's pretty much what happened. I grew up in a house where my little sister was the star, my mom treated me like background noise, and my dad was miles away working. This isn't just another my parents played favorite story, though. It's about how one birthday turned into a fight that lasted years. So let me paint you the picture of how it all went. I'm 27 now, but this starts when I was 8. I grew up in what you could call a half-normal home. My parents separated when I was about 4. It wasn't some huge fight or dramatic thing that I could remember, just that one day, my dad stopped living with us. He was still around, but my mom had custody. She worked part-time and stayed at home with us most of the time. I have one sibling, a younger sister, who was born a little before my parents split. She's 3 years younger than me. Mom always seemed to light up when my sister was around. I was just the older kid who was supposed to handle things. It wasn't like she openly hated me, but you could tell there was a difference. She would go overboard for my sister's birthdays, dance recitals, and whatever hobby she was into at the moment. I didn't think too much about it at first. I was a kid. I liked video games and playing outside. I didn't need anyone to clap for me every second. Dad was the opposite. When he came over, he made a big deal about spending time with me. We'd play soccer in the yard, or he'd bring me small gadgets and toys. Nothing crazy, but it felt like he noticed me. He had this habit of giving me little pep talks. Even when I was like 6, things like, you have to look after your sister or be patient with your mom. My mom's attitude wasn't cruel yet. She just seemed busier or more interested when it came to my sister. If my sister wanted riding lessons, she got them. If I asked for a soccer camp, it was usually too expensive or maybe later. But I didn't think of it as favoritism, just life. Kids believe whatever setup they're born into is normal. By the time I was 8, my friends were a big part of my life. We lived in a decent neighborhood, and I'd hang out with the kids next door and a couple of girls from school. We'd play tag, ride bikes, swap Pokemon cards, simple stuff. That year, I was really looking forward to my birthday, not because I wanted a huge party, but because it was my one day. My dad had asked me what I wanted, and I told him maybe a new bike or some cool video game. He said he'd see what he could do. My mom told me she'd handle the party. She said she'd make it special, and I believed her. She even asked me what kind of cake I wanted. I picked chocolate with blue icing. She wrote things down and acted like she was really into it. I invited a few friends. Nothing big, maybe 6 or 7 kids. It was supposed to be on a Saturday, so everyone could come. Leading up to it, everything felt fine. Mom wasn't acting weird, and my sister didn't seem to care much. She had her own thing going on with her dolls and some horse toys she carried everywhere. I figured it was going to be a normal birthday. A couple of days before the party, I remember overhearing my mom on the phone with my aunt. She was talking about making it a special day for both kids. I didn't think much about it at the time. I figured maybe she just meant my sister would tag along. That's pretty normal when you're the older kid. The night before the party, I was pumped. My dad called to wish me a happy birthday and said he might drop by with something. I was thinking about what game or toy it could be. My mom seemed distracted, but I chalked it up to party planning. The morning came and I woke up early. My mom told me to wear something nice because people were coming. That sounded exciting. I had this favorite t-shirt with a cartoon robot on it, but she said, "No, wear the button-up shirt." It felt like too much, but I didn't argue. Around noon, I was sitting outside waiting for my friends. Instead of my buddies showing up, the first thing I saw was a small horse trailer pulling into our driveway. A woman got out leading a tiny pony. My mom came out smiling and started fussing over it. I remember thinking, cool, but why? I didn't like horses that much. My sister was jumping up and down. Then a couple of girls about her age arrived, dressed up like princesses. I kept waiting for my friends, but they didn't show. More little girls came. My sister disappeared and came back wearing a Cinderella dress. The decorations around the yard were pink and purple. I started to feel off about it. So I'm standing there in my nice shirt, watching more and more little girls show up. They all had gift bags, balloons, even some wearing tiaras. Every single one walked right past me to my sister. My mom greeted each one like it was some big event. She didn't even look at me, except to tell me to move out of the way so the pony could get through the gate. I kept waiting for my friends, thinking maybe she invited them later or something. Noon turned into 12:30. The yard had pink streamers, a table full of princess plates, and a banner that literally said, "Our Little Princess." No mention of me anywhere. My name wasn't on the cake, which was covered in pastel colors and little edible flowers. I finally asked my mom quietly, "Where are my friends?" She just said, "They couldn't make it, but you should be happy we're celebrating as a family." Then she told me to be polite and not ruin things. I was 8, so I didn't know what to say. I just sat on the steps and watched. The pony ride started. My sister was screaming with happiness, going around the yard while everyone clapped. Each kid got a turn. I didn't even get asked if I wanted one. I probably looked miserable because one of the moms asked me, "Aren't you going to ride?" And before I could answer, my mom jumped in. "Oh, she's not interested. She's too grown up for that." The gifts came next. Every single one was some princess toy, horse figurine, or doll. They were all handed to my sister while my mom took pictures. The only thing with my name on it came from my dad. He wasn't there yet, but he'd sent a small package earlier in the week. Mom didn't even let me open it. She set it aside. By this point, I went inside. I sat in my room staring at the wall, feeling this mix of anger and embarrassment. I could hear the music and laughing outside. Nobody came looking for me, not even my sister. Around 3 p.m., my dad finally showed up. I heard his voice, and it was like a relief. I came down, and the first thing he did was ask me why I wasn't outside. I didn't answer. He stepped into the yard and stopped. He saw the decorations, the pony, the little girls, and his face changed. "Whose party is this?" he asked. My mom said, "It's for both of them. They're sharing." He looked at me and then at my sister, who was opening another gift. "Doesn't look like sharing," he said. He pulled me aside and asked quietly, "Did you get any presents? Did your friends come?" I shook my head. He didn't say anything for a moment. He went to his car and came back with a big box. He gave it to me, right there in the middle of the pink yard. It was a brand new bike, the kind I'd been pointing at for months. When he handed it to me, my mom started saying, "Really? She doesn't need that right now. You're just spoiling her." My dad just looked at her and said, "It's her birthday." That was the first time I really felt there was some line drawn. My mom didn't smile, didn't clap. She went quiet for a while, then started cleaning up plates like she was annoyed. The girls kept playing, but the mood for me was just off. I rode the bike up and down the driveway a couple of times, but it didn't feel like a birthday should. By late afternoon, the pony left and the parents picked up their kids. My sister was glowing, sitting with a pile of toys around her. My mom hugged her and kept saying, "What a great day." She didn't say anything to me. When the last guest left, my dad stayed. He sat with me in the living room and asked again what happened. I told him the truth, that I invited friends, but my mom didn't call them, and the whole thing was for my sister. He was quiet, then said, "I'm sorry, that shouldn't have happened." Mom came in and heard part of it. She immediately got defensive. "They're kids. It's just a party. She needs to learn to share. Her sister's younger. She needs the attention." They went back and forth for a while. I sat there listening. My dad kept his voice calm, but you could hear the anger. "You don't do this to a kid on her birthday," he said. "I'm not going to let this slide again." They argued more after I went upstairs. I heard bits and pieces, spending too much money, trying to show off. "You only come around to play hero." It was the first time I really heard them fight about me. When my dad finally left that evening, he gave me another hug and said, "We'll talk soon, okay? Keep that bike safe." It stuck with me that night. I opened the small package. It was a handheld game from Dad. I remember holding it in my room, thinking it was the only thing that actually had my name on it. Then I sat by the window, looking at the bike outside. My sister's gifts were piled in the corner of the living room. My mom didn't come up to say goodnight. That was when something shifted. I didn't know it at the time, but that birthday was the moment I stopped expecting anything from her. A few months later, my dad came by less often because of work. He told me he had an overseas contract and would be gone for a long time. I was 9 when he left, and even though he promised to call and send letters, it wasn't the same. Once he was gone, the house really became my mom's world, and she made it clear she was in charge. My sister could get away with anything. My mom's energy went into her hobbies. She got riding lessons, ballet classes, and later piano. Weekends were full of events for her. My mom loved to invite people over to show her off. I'd be in the background, usually asked to take pictures or help carry stuff. School was my escape. I liked being with my friends, but even there it was hard sometimes. My mom wasn't really interested in school meetings or events for me. She showed up for my sister's recital and open houses, though. Teachers even noticed. One teacher asked once if my mom was coming to parent night. I just shrugged. Then something changed. My sister started to get older too, and my mom's expectations got heavier. She pushed her harder, more lessons, more pressure about school and friends. I could see my sister getting stressed, but she didn't fight back. At 15, I had my first real argument with my mom. It was over money. I'd been saving up to buy a used laptop because the one at home was basically hers and my sister's. When I mentioned it, she snapped and said, "Why do you need that? Everything is about you needing something." That one line stuck with me because it felt like everything wasn't about me at all. My dad would call now and then. He asked about school, friends, sports. I never told him much because I didn't want to sound like I was complaining. Sometimes he'd send money for birthdays or Christmas. Mom controlled it. She'd say, "We'll use this for something important." And usually that meant bills or something for my sister. One summer when I was 16, my dad visited for a short trip. He took me out to lunch, just the two of us. I told him a little about home. Not everything, but enough. He listened and didn't say much. But before he left, he gave me a small envelope. Inside was $200 and a note that said, "For your goals, don't tell your mom." That was the first time I realized he knew more than I thought. That money became my little safety net. I used some to fix up an old bike, some to buy books and things for school. My sister never knew. Around that same time, I started working weekends at a grocery store, bagging, stocking, whatever they needed. It wasn't much, but it gave me something. I kept my earnings hidden just in case. Looking back, there were good moments. My sister wasn't mean. She just lived in a different world under my mom's wing. Sometimes we'd watch TV together or joke about school, but there was always this line between us. And it wasn't her fault or mine. It was just how the house was set up. By the time I turned 17, I was already thinking about escape plans. College, internships, anything. I wanted out. My dad's calls were the only times I felt like someone believed I could do something bigger. My mom's voice was always about being responsible, but never about what I wanted. Senior year started, and I already had one goal in mind. I didn't care if it was a dorm, another state, another country. I just wanted to leave that house. I kept my grades up because I knew scholarships were my best shot. I didn't have money saved for tuition. What I earned from the grocery store was pocket change compared to what I needed. I spent afternoons in the school library filling out applications. I didn't tell my mom every detail because I knew how she would react. She always had something to say whenever I mentioned wanting to leave. She'd make comments like, "Why do you need to go so far? There are community colleges here." Or, "College is expensive. You think money grows on trees?" I learned to keep things quiet. But eventually, she found out. One night, she came into my room while I was printing out some forms. She picked up a packet and read the header. "Out of state?" she said, raising her voice. "Who said you could apply to schools out of state? We can't afford that." I told her I was trying for scholarships and financial aid. She shook her head and said, "You're dreaming. Those things are for kids with perfect grades and special circumstances. And who's going to help your sister if you leave? Who's going to help me? You're being selfish." That word selfish hit hard. I kept calm and explained that I wanted a future, that I didn't want to be stuck in town. She cut me off. "Stuck? What's wrong with this house? You think you're better than us?" Then she said something I'll never forget. "You're not going anywhere. You'll waste time and money, and you'll come crawling back." End of discussion. After that night, she started keeping a closer eye on me. Mail from colleges. She'd open it first by mistake. Phone calls from unknown numbers. She'd pick up. She even told a family friend that I was getting ahead of myself. It was like she wanted to control every step. Around this time, my dad called more often. I told him I was applying everywhere and that I needed advice. He said, "Keep doing it. Don't let anyone stop you." I think he knew my mom would push back. He offered to help pay application fees if I needed it. I didn't tell her that part. As deadlines came closer, I spent every free moment writing essays and filling forms. My sister noticed something was going on, but she didn't ask much. She was busy with her activities, an end-of-year ballet and piano recital. Mom kept reminding me about chores, about being home more. I'd nod and go back to the library. The real fight came a month before graduation. I got an email saying I'd been waitlisted for a good school and invited for an interview for a scholarship. I was excited. I printed it out and left it on my desk. That was my mistake. When I came home from work that night, the paper was gone. My mom was sitting in the kitchen with it in her hand. "What is this?" she asked. I said it was an opportunity. She put it down hard on the table and said, "Opportunity? Do you even know how much it costs to live on your own? Do you know how many kids fail? You think you'll make it? You can barely keep this house clean. I told her calmly, "It's my decision. I'm 18 soon. I'm going to try." She stood up and said, "Not while you live under my roof. I will not let you waste money we don't have. You want to throw your life away? Do it somewhere else." It turned into yelling. She said I was ungrateful, that I didn't care about my family. She brought up every small thing, how she raised me alone, how my dad only showed up to look good, how I was cold compared to my sister. I stayed quiet for as long as I could, then said, "Maybe if you listened, you'd know I've been trying my best. You never cared what I wanted." That shut the room down. My sister came out of her room because of the noise. She just stood there silent. My mom told me to go to my room. I went, but I knew then that I was leaving no matter what. After that night, things got colder. She barely spoke to me unless it was about chores. I kept applying. I got rejection after rejection, and some schools didn't respond at all. It was rough. I felt like maybe she was right, that I wasn't good enough. But the idea of staying there felt worse than failing. So I made a choice. I started setting money aside, tips, extra hours, anything. I kept an old backpack ready. I didn't have a plan, but I knew I'd leave. By graduation, nothing had changed between us. No congratulations, just a handshake and a "don't forget to help around here." The day I turned 18, I gave it one last shot with another scholarship application. When it didn't work out, I decided that was it. I packed a few clothes, my old laptop, and whatever cash I had saved. I didn't tell anyone. I waited until she left for errands, and I walked out the door. I left the house on a warm morning with one backpack. I had maybe a couple $100 in cash, my old phone, some clothes, and the laptop my dad helped me buy used. It didn't feel like freedom yet, just like moving fast before I changed my mind. I took the bus to a city about 4 hours away. I'd never been there, but I figured a bigger place meant more chances. The first hours felt good. The bus ride was quiet, and I kept thinking about all the things I'd do. I planned to find a cheap room, maybe a shared apartment, and start working somewhere right away. But plans collapse fast when you're 18 and alone. The first problem came as soon as I stepped off the bus. I went into a small cafe to grab a drink and use the bathroom. When I came out, my backpack was gone. Someone had taken it. I ran around like an idiot. Asked a few people if they saw anything, but no one did. Everything I owned, money, laptop, clothes, gone in seconds. I had maybe $20 in my pocket from buying snacks earlier. That was it. The next days were rough. The first night, I stayed at the bus station, sitting upright on a metal bench. I kept my phone and the little cash I had in my pocket and barely slept. The second night, I walked around until late and then found a corner behind a closed store with a wide overhang. It kept the wind off, but it was cold and loud. The third night, I slept in a small park on a bench close to a light pole because it felt safer. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept waking up to footsteps or voices. I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. By the fourth day, I started asking for work. I walked block after block, stopping at diners, shops, gas stations. Most places wanted applications online. Some just said no. The few that talked to me looked at me like I was just another kid passing through. I was too young to get serious work, and I didn't have any ID with me now. It was in the stolen bag. Around noon, I found a small, family-owned restaurant. It was old, with faded red paint and a big chalkboard menu. I walked in and asked if they needed help. The guy behind the counter was maybe in his 60s. He looked at me for a long time and said, "We don't hire strangers." I told him I'd do anything, clean tables, wash dishes. He shook his head. "Too many kids come in asking that. They quit after 2 days. I don't need the headache." I left. But something about that place stuck with me. This restaurant felt like my only shot. It was the kind of under-the-table kitchen work where nobody asked for paperwork. So I went back the next day, stood outside until the lunch rush started, and waited for him to come out for a smoke. When he did, I went up again. I told him my story straight, that I left home because I wanted to build something, that I'd been sleeping in the bus station and on benches since I got here, and that I wasn't asking for charity. I said I'd work for food if that's all he could give. He didn't buy it right away. "Everyone's got a story," he said. "How do I know you won't take off with the till?" I told him I'd clean the bathroom right now if he wanted proof. He stared at me like he was deciding if I was worth the trouble. Then he just went back inside. I could have walked away, but I didn't. That night, I swept the sidewalk in front of his place without asking. Nobody told me to, but I wanted him to see I was serious. When he came to open the next morning, he saw me sitting there with the broom leaning against the wall. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at the clean sidewalk and unlocked the door. I followed him inside and said, "Give me one day. If I mess up, I'll leave." He didn't answer right away. He poured himself coffee, stood there thinking, then finally said, "Fine. No pay, no food until you finish your shift. If you're good, we'll talk." That first day was brutal. I washed dishes until my hands hurt. I cleaned the kitchen, wiped tables, carried heavy boxes. He didn't make it easy either. He checked everything I did. By closing time, I was starving. He finally handed me a plate of leftover pasta and said, "Come back tomorrow, 7 a.m. Don't be late." It wasn't a job yet, but it was something. Over the next week, he kept me on the same deal. Work first, mostly food for payment. When he saw I kept showing up, he started slipping me a little cash each night. When I left at night, I went back to the same corner behind the store or the park bench. It wasn't much, but at least I had food in me. After the 4th day, he asked my name and age. On the 5th day, he asked if I could handle more than dishes. By the 2nd week, he told me, "You want a cot? There's a small room upstairs. It's nothing fancy, but it's better than the street." I said yes before he changed his mind. It was a narrow room with a bed and a little desk. To me, it was everything. That was the first time in over a week I slept without looking over my shoulder. Now I'd been working at the restaurant for almost 6 months when I heard from my dad again. He called out of the blue. My phone, the same old one, barely held a charge, but I picked up. He sounded excited and said he was back in the country for good. He wanted to visit. I froze because I hadn't told anyone where I was. I gave him a small lie, said I was busy with work, that I'd explain later. He said, "Work? Where?" I dodged the question, said I'd call him soon, and hung up. 2 weeks later, my dad showed up at my mom's house expecting to see me. That's when it all started. I wasn't there, obviously, and my mom had no idea where I'd gone. She thought I was at a friend's, or maybe just avoiding her. My sister was the one who broke the news. She left after graduation. I didn't see any of this, but my sister filled me in later. Dad didn't take it well. He kept asking, "Where is she? Why didn't anyone tell me? Why wasn't I called?" My mom shrugged and said, "She wanted to leave. She's always been dramatic." That's when things exploded. My dad had spent years away working to send money back. He said, "Dramatic? She's my daughter. How did you let her walk out the door?" My mom shot back, "She's stubborn like you, always wanting more than what's reasonable. She wouldn't listen." Dad asked if she even tried to stop me. She said, "Why should I? She wanted to run off to chase some dream. She thinks she's smarter than everyone." Dad lost it then. He reminded her of every call he'd made. Every time he asked about me, he accused her of never supporting me, only favoring my sister. My sister told me she'd never seen them fight like that. Dad's voice was loud but steady, while Mom got sharper and louder with every sentence. She said, "You don't get to judge me. You were gone. I was here raising them. I dealt with everything while you lived your life somewhere else." Dad said, "Don't twist this. I left to work because we needed it. I trusted you to be fair to both kids. You didn't. You made her feel like she was nothing." Mom slammed her hands on the table and said, "I gave her food, a roof, school. What else did she want?" Dad said, "Support, a chance. And you crushed it because you were too busy making her your little queen." That's when my sister stepped in. She told me later, she said quietly, "It's true, you were harder on her." My mom turned on her. "You don't know what you're talking about. You're a child." My sister said, "I saw everything. She worked jobs. She stayed out of your way. You barely cared." Dad kept pressing. "Where would she go with nothing? Did you even check? Did you call me? Did you call anyone?" My mom said, "She's 18, not a baby. She wanted to act grown, so I let her." The fight went back and forth like that for over an hour. Mom dug in, blaming me for being cold and distant, blaming Dad for being absent, blaming money. Dad kept coming back to the same point. "You lost her because you didn't care enough to keep her." Finally, my dad said, "I'll find her. Don't call me unless it's about the kids. And don't blame me when she never comes back here." He left. I didn't know any of this until a day later when my dad called me again. His voice was different. "Where are you?" I told him the truth this time. I said I was working at a small restaurant, staying upstairs in a tiny room. There was a pause. Then he said, "Stay there. I'm coming." He showed up 2 days later. I was in the kitchen washing dishes when the old man, my boss, said, "There's someone here for you." I walked out and saw him. He looked older, a bit tired, but when he saw me, he smiled like nothing else mattered. He didn't yell, didn't scold. He just hugged me. Then he stepped back and said, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "I didn't want to bother you, and I didn't want to hear that I couldn't do it. He looked around the restaurant. This is where you've been? I nodded. I told him everything, losing my stuff, sleeping at the bus station, getting the job. He listened and didn't interrupt. When I finished, he turned to my boss and said, "Thank you for giving her a chance." The old man said, "She earned it. She's stubborn, but she works." My dad laughed at that and said, "Yeah, she gets it from me." After we closed that night, Dad and I went for a walk. He asked me if I wanted to come live with him. He'd rented a place now that he was back. Small, but enough. I hesitated but said yes. The restaurant had saved me, but I wanted stability and I trusted him. Before we left, I thanked the old man again. He told me, "Don't waste the chance. People don't get many." When we got to Dad's place, he sat me down and said, "I know I wasn't around enough. That won't happen again. Whatever you want to do, college, work, whatever, I'll back you." It felt strange to hear that. For the first time, I believed him. Moving in with my dad felt like stepping into a different world. His place was small, one bedroom, and a pull-out couch for me, but it felt like home the first night. He didn't treat me like I was a burden. He treated me like someone worth investing in. He asked about my plans and didn't laugh when I said college. He just said, "We'll make it work." The first thing he did was help me get new documents and ID since I'd lost everything when my bag got stolen. Then he opened a small savings account with me. He said, "Put something in here every week, even if it's $10. Build it up." I kept working at the restaurant part-time. The old man didn't mind. He said I could come in on weekends. During the week, my dad pushed me to focus on school. He found community programs that helped with college prep. I applied to more places, this time with his help. We sat at the kitchen table filling out forms. He paid the application fees without blinking. When the first acceptance came, a small college 2 states away, I couldn't believe it. I showed him the email and he grinned like he'd won something. We kept going, applying for scholarships and aid. He even drove me to interviews, sometimes 2 hours away. I didn't get everything I wanted, but by the time fall rolled around, I had enough support to start. The day I moved into the dorm, he said, "No matter what, call me if you need me. I'll be there." Those words stuck. Life moved fast after that. College was tough, but I handled it. I worked part-time jobs, took classes seriously, and stayed close to my dad. My sister started texting me here and there. At first, it was small stuff. "Hey, how's school?" or "Miss you." I could tell she was different. She never took sides before, but now she seemed to want a connection. The biggest surprise came when my mom reached out. It was during my second year. She called and left a long voicemail. It started off casual, then went into, "I miss you. The house feels empty. Your sister talks about you all the time. Maybe you can come for dinner." I didn't answer right away. I talked to my dad about it. He said, "It's your call. Just remember how you were treated." I didn't feel angry anymore, just cautious. I sent a short reply. "I'm busy, but thanks." As the years went on, the gap between us stayed. My sister kept being friendly, even visiting campus once. She admitted one night, "Mom was too hard on you." I see it now. She's hard on me now, too. It was strange to hear that, but I didn't gloat. I just said, "Yeah, it was rough." The real karma came slowly. My sister told me that after I left, my mom started leaning on her more. The praise turned into pressure. My sister was expected to do everything perfectly. They fought often. My sister eventually moved out at 19, saying she couldn't take it anymore. By the time I graduated, things had changed. I walked across the stage, and the first person I saw cheering was my dad. The old restaurant owner even came and clapped from the back row. My sister sent a picture with, "Proud of you." My mom didn't show. Work life started quick after college. I landed an internship that turned into a job. Money wasn't huge at first, but I was on my own. My dad loved hearing about every step. He'd say, "I told you you just needed someone to back you up." One day, maybe a year after starting my job, my mom called again. This time she was soft-spoken. "I just want to see you." We all make mistakes. I agreed to meet for coffee, but I kept it short. I wasn't cruel, but I didn't pretend everything was fine. She talked mostly about herself, about how hard it was without me there. I listened, nodded, and left. I didn't need her approval anymore. The distance taught me that family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up. My dad showed up, even my sister eventually. My mom, she was part of the past. A few months later, my niece was born, my sister's daughter. I went to the hospital, held her, and felt happy in a way I hadn't expected. My sister hugged me and said, "She's going to know you, I promise." That felt good. Sometimes I think back to that birthday party when I was 8. The pony, the pink decorations, me sitting on the steps wondering why no one cared. It's not pain anymore, just a reminder of where I started. Now I have my own apartment. I still talk to my dad almost every day. My sister visits with her kid. My mom sends cards sometimes, but I keep things polite and distant. Mom ended up alone in the house she once controlled. My sister built her own life and I built mine. The difference is I know now what I want and what I won't tolerate. Everything came full circle. The kid no one celebrated now had something better than a party. She had a life she chose.